Welcome back, people, to another Sex Coach Reads Reddit Sex Questions. Does a deep dive into the pleasant place that is Reddit Sex Advice to give my input as a sex expert and just guy with great opinions on sex and just a cool guy. So yeah, maybe some of you guys have the same questions and I'm going to answer them for you right now. Maybe you don't. You probably don't because these are Reddit sex questions, so they're usually somewhat out of left field. But, I like to try to pick ones that are more applicable to the general public. So let's start. All right, first question. I, 19 female, think I like slapping in words like slut and whore in sex, and I am ashamed of it. And they go on to explain it a little bit more, but I don't need to read any more than that. They feel ashamed of it, and they feel this guilt associated with it. And what I would say is that this is an extremely normal thing to want during sex. People, especially women, need a psychological aspect to sex. They need something mentally to bring them in. And that dirty talk, degrading possibly, domination possibly is what this person wants. It's what a lot of people want. That will get them mentally invested, psychologically stimulated in the sex. And that's what they need to get off. That's what every good sexual experience needs. It needs that psychological component. So don't be ashamed of liking these things and embrace it, and you'll have the best sex of your life. If there is some sort of guilt associated with it because of how you were raised or religion or whatnot, then that is more something that you need to figure out on your own, possibly therapy. However, I will say that this is an extremely common thing. So don't think that you are just a 1 in a million person with these crazy sexual desires that no one can understand and no one relates to. You're probably in the majority with this if you have this certain desire during sex. And that's all it is a psychological stimulation builder. That's what dirty talk is, and that is going to determine better sex more so than physical stimulation could ever. So yeah, if that's what you need, then definitely do it. Question number 2. Accidentally had anal. Okay, bro. Bro, I was having sex yesterday and I was on top, and while he was trying to put his dick back in me, he accidentally put it in my ass and it went through, and you get the idea. It was extremely painful. They even say 10 hours later they're still feeling it, feeling the after effects of this crazy accident that happened to them. And they are wondering why anyone could possibly like anal sex. And I will say that, like in the first question that I answered, there is a psychological component that is required during sex, especially for women. So there needs to be some sort of psychological buildup before you can just kind of go into anal and just blast through. And what am I talking about? There needs to be some sort of mental buildup, some arousal, some anticipation, and expectation that that's going to happen. If something is shocking like that and you're not mentally prepared for it, you're not into it, you don't want it, then of course it is not going to be good. But to just kind of blanket statement that why would anyone want this because it's always going to be painful, it's always terrible, that's pretty short-sighted in my opinion. The main point that I want to drive home with this particular question is that everyone has different tastes in sex, and the worst thing that you can do is be judgmental and discard people's sexual desires as ridiculous, stupid, painful, or just why would anyone want that? That is the worst thing you can possibly do if you want to continually have sex with someone, because no one, even if anal is not something that they're particularly into at all, and they would possibly agree with your sentiments on anal. For example, in this scenario, if you're coming from the angle of negativity and judgment in sex, then your partner is not going to want to open up to you, and they're not going to want to really have sex with you because they're worried that something they might like will get judged by you as well. And sex is a very vulnerable thing. It puts you into a vulnerable state, an extremely vulnerable state that we're not usually in our everyday life. It takes a lot of trust and communication to fully let go. And if you don't fully let go, you cannot reach that full potential of psychological stimulation, which, as I said in the other questions, that is the most important part. So if you don't have that psychological stimulation and your mind is closed off to it because you're perceiving some sort of negativity or your partner is perceiving some sort of negativity, then the sex won't ever go anywhere. And it's a surefire way to end a sexual relationship or just keep it stagnating, and it's not going to be as good as it could be. Question number 3. Hey guys and gals, I'm curious to know what you guys consider bad sex. Is it slow, boring, too rough, I'm guessing? No chemistry. So, what is bad sex? So, yes, all those things could be bad sex. Really, anything could be bad sex if there is not a psychological component to it. I'm detecting a theme in this video. Every question has to do with psychological stimulation. And that is the thing. If you are not mentally engaged in the sex, there's nothing psychological that is bringing you in. And it's just the physical act of sex. It's just that physical touch part. Then the sex is going to be boring. It's not going to be good. It's going to be, stale. And you're not going to enjoy yourself. If, however, you have that psychological factor that is turning you on, that's arousing you, that is putting passion into the experience above just the physical stimulation, the thrusting and the penetration or whatever you're doing, if you have this psychological component that is kind of overarching the whole thing, that is bringing you in, keeping you engaged in the experience, that is what is going to make the sex great and amazing. So that is basically it. You just need that psychological component. So spend more time in foreplay, add dirty talk, figure out what your partner wants mentally in sex. So whether it's from that first question, some insults, some degrading, maybe it's dominance, maybe they just want an emotional connection, they want it to be pure and loving. Whatever it is that is going to arouse your partner psychologically, get their head into the sex, invested into the sexual experience rather than wandering elsewhere, then that will amplify the physical stimulation and it's going to make the sex good and it's not going to make it bad. So when you hear these things like no chemistry or boring, that's exactly why. It's because there's no psychological stimulation there. So there you go. Question number 4. Friends with benefits told me he recently watched porn with my kink in mind. So they go on to describe the porn and describe how it relates to their kink and how they think this is so cute and romantic, and they're wondering if everyone does this and do they think it's cute and is it a cool thing to do. I am here to say that porn viewing is not good for anyone, especially in a relationship. I'm not sure why you would need it in a relationship. In my opinion, you should get all of your sexual satisfaction from your partner. There should really be no excuse for you to be finding sexual pleasure elsewhere. And I think most of these people that do watch porn while they're in a relationship will realize that their porn watching is not sexually related. It is more compulsory because they are actually addicted to it. Because internet porn these days, with the high-speed internet connection and availability that we have on our phones and computers and everything else, porn is highly, highly addictive. So even if you think you're not addicted, you probably are if you're a somewhat regular user. And then it's not a sexual thing at all. It is a compulsory, habitual addiction thing, and that's not good for anyone. Porn addiction causes sexual dysfunction, and on top of that, depression, social anxiety, generalized anxiety, and a lack in motivation, a laziness. So don't watch porn, especially if you're in a relationship. I would say it's more disrespectful than cute, because it's kind of like you're just wasting your sexual energy on something else when you could put all that passion and sexual energy and amazingness into your partner. that sounded dirtier than I anticipated. You don't have to put it in your partner, but you know, you could if you want. To each their own, right? Non-judgment. It's all coming full circle. All right, fifth and final question, because I'm sick of answering these questions for you guys. Just kidding. I don't know why I'm being aggressive all of a sudden. Is anyone else a big fan of building tension, or is it just frustrating? I thought this was a great question because tension itself and sexual anticipation are great for building arousal and building passion and doing that psychological stimulation like I've talked about a million times already, and making a sexual experience better because of those mental factors, the anticipation, the excitement, the arousal, the horniness, if you will. So tension in itself is a really good thing to do, to add to your sexual endeavors. So yes, it is a good thing. It can, however, go too far. If you are teasing to the extremes and it's all build up and no payoff, then yes, it can get frustrating and annoying. So you need to kind of find the balance for yourself, and that kind of just takes being mindful, listening to your partner, not just verbally listening, but listening to their body language. So yeah, it can go too far, but as a whole, tension is a really great thing, and it helps you build that psychological stimulation that you need to have better sex and amazing sex all the time. So there you have it. So I have dug deep into Reddit, not that deep I guess, but answered a couple questions for you guys. Hopefully it helps some of you guys out, answers a couple things. I think we talked mostly about psychological stimulation, as always on my channel, but you know, it's worth repeating. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video and you found it informative, please go ahead and subscribe. It helps me out, and I will love you forever if you do it. So there you go, that's motivation enough. But if you like this video, like it, leave a comment. I'll respond to all the comments down there. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye guys.